How can vitamin D deficiency and its harmful impacts on pregnant women who have malaria affect birth outcomes? Okay, so a little bit of context on this. This question wasn't created by my mentor, but she did help me a lot in collecting resources and like how to really approach this question on like a scientific research college level way and not eighth grade, middle school. This is interesting to me kind of topic. So a few things. Number one, I've always been interested in like bones and how vitamin D deficiency impacts bones in humans and really animals in general. So for the first example of what really inspired me for this project is actually my leopard geckos. Anyone with reptiles knows that a huge part of husbandry for leopard geckos and really reptiles in general is that you have to provide them vitamin D deficiency. That means they need a light, a bathing light, a nighttime bulb, and then they also need a vitamin D light, a fluorescent light that kind of gives them vitamin D throughout the day. Without it, this is a normal leopard gecko, no really deformities in their skin or bones, but this is how it looks without vitamin D light. As you can see, their bones get really twisted up and like deformed, which is actually really reminiscent of what actually happens to humans, which I'll be showing you in a few pictures. Okay, let's go back to slideshow. Okay, abstract. Among developing nations, malaria has been a major cause for concern, particularly in pregnant women and young children, who are most vulnerable to its effects. Vitamin D controls the parathyroid hormone, which controls blood calcium levels. While studies have found insufficient levels of circulating vitamin D in infants, pregnant and lactating women, and adults generally, despite adequate and stable sunny weather conditions in subtropical countries, direct skin contact with ultraviolet UV rays is the primary way that vitamin D is acquired. This study will concentrate on sub-Saharan Africa patients from Uganda and Kenya, and on maternal vitamin D levels in relation to malaria and adverse pregnancy outcomes. The analysis controlling maternal age and BMI found that deficient vitamin D levels were associated with a shorter length of gestational age because of inadequate and repeated bouts of infection from contraception. So let me read you a little bit more on my introduction. Okay. Recently, more research has gone into the study of vitamin D deficiency and its effects on childbirth. Reported birth outcomes ranging from preeclampsia, low birth weight, preterm birth, rickets, abnormal bone growth, and another long range of abnormalities that could be detrimental for the infants and mothers. This essay will study vitamin D deficiency in malaria-ridden patients in sub-Saharan Africa, as I already mentioned. Vitamin D is a hormone in the body that helps control the concentration of calcium in the blood and in vital development of strong bones, especially in infants and small children. Because of this, pregnant women are strongly encouraged to take vitamin supplements during pregnancy and have a strong, consistent diet of vitamin D. One of the many vitamins pregnant women in Kenya and Uganda are not supplemented with on a regular basis is vitamin D, which has been the main reason why a lot of infants in Kenya, Uganda, and a lot of sub-Saharan African countries are impact the fetus with abnormal bone growth, fractures, rickets in newborns, gestational diabetes, preeclampsia, preterm birth, low birth weight, and a kit of other severe health problems. The parathyroid hormone, which regulates blood calcium levels, is controlled by vitamin D. Active vitamin D influences the immune system through dendritic and macrophages cells. In macrophages, vitamin D is required for defense against pathogens. In fact, vitamin D is so important for immune function that low levels of vitamin D are associated with an increased risk of respiratory disease, including tuberculosis, asthma, and chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, as well as viral and bacterial respiratory infections. This is why maternal vitamin D deficiency and parasitic infections are associated with one another, and why vitamin D deficiency is heavily associated with severe malaria. So in summary, what I'm trying to really say about this is that, malaria is a huge problem in a lot of African countries. And what's even worse, what makes the problem even worse is vitamin D deficiency, which also is a larger problem in African countries. So if you combine vitamin D deficiency with malaria, the results are terrible. With the study, though, there wasn't a lot of evidence with vitamin D deficiency because there are two limitations. Number one, vitamin D supplementation is not like it's not a regular thing. It's not part of like the healthcare in Kenya and Uganda. So you can't really test out if it would be beneficial to pregnant mothers if it's never been supplemented. So that was kind of a problem a lot of researchers ran into. Okay, methodology. My research consisted of sifting through databases and selecting the various limited information available that encompasses my research question. For this paper, I found 2 potential articles published by the public publisher Medline Journal database in the BMC. And the first paper was a research paper that was undertaken at the Shulambo Sub-District Hospital using pregnant women of all gravities who were under 26 weeks gestation and were HIV uninfected. They took anthropomorphic measures of all the mothers and calculated the newborn's weight, length, and head circumference at enrollment. They next collected around 2,000 milliliters of maternal venous blood to diagnose malaria. Additionally, cord blood from the newborns were aseptically drawn from the umbilical vein into EDTA microcontainer tubes and utilized for vitamin D EIA testing. Artemether 20 mg, lumefantrine 120 mg, a first-line anti-malarial medication recommended for non-severe malaria by the Kenyan MOH, were administered to those who've been diagnosed with the illness. All expectant mothers receive SP for malaria protection during the 3rd trimester of pregnancy, according to the Kenyan MOH recommendation. So, results. I just wanted to show you guys a form of rickets in all 3 of these patients and children. As you can see, it's super severe here. A lot of bone deformities because of a lack of vitamin D, which is extremely common and present in African countries, as I said before. And you can just see a little bit of the results of the lack of vitamin D supplementation here. So, because I wasn't able to really upload it on slideshow, I can show you on my essay that I turned in the tables of everything they gathered: maternal ages, gestational ages, weeks, body mass, anemia, severe anemia. This is all the results of the woman and the pregnant women they tested, and all the results from that birth. Newborn statistics: 42.6% were female. Gestational age of birth: weeks, 39.2 weeks. Preterm birth weight: 3.3. That's extremely low. 49.0. Head circumference, plasma 25, and cord blood, MOH, plasma 25 OHD, deficient, insufficient. So really what these results really explain here is that, like, this study, there were really no significant differences in vitamin D concentrations relative to malaria infection status. This is because that vitamin D supplementation was not given at the start of the study. So vitamin D, as it was seen here, vitamin D at the cause of the enrollment was not very much different from other patients. So what I'm trying to say is here, malaria affected mothers that had malaria and that could have passed on to their onto their newborns, and then mothers that did not have malaria, did not have any HIV, did not have any infections, their vitamin D deficiency levels were similar because they were never given vitamin D supplementation. Okay, let's go back to my slideshow here, and slideshow. Here's just a few more examples of rickets and you can see severe deformities here, all because of lack of vitamin D deficiency and malaria. In conclusion, the other research paper that took place in Uganda tested back with similar results on the matter. While the second paper did mainly focus on ammonia and iron deficiency, it still did a similar study and test and proved the correlation between vitamin D deficiency and undesirable birth outcomes. The results of this study show among the HIV-infected women that anemia and micronutrient deficiencies are associated with adverse obstetric and infant outcomes. Placenta of malaria-ridden patients is already at risk of normal development and damage of placenta, but the disease can become much more deadly when the blood-borne disease caused by Plasmodium is now crippled with vitamin D deficiency. Highlighting vitamin D deficiency affinity with severe cerebral malaria. So vitamin D deficiency, as I just read here, has a severe affinity with cerebral malaria. There are 3 kinds of malaria. There's abstract malaria. It's very hard to see in a patient. You kind of have to you can't really see it, it's only caused by vomiting, nausea. They're not as severe as the other forms. Cerebral malaria is the most severe form of malaria. Okay. One article by TV Area highlighted 3 cases of severe malaria during pregnancy, where one patient had an intrauterine fetal death and died. One patient delivered a dead baby, and the other had severe postpartum hemorrhage. Both studies help further research in vitamin D supplementation, as researchers and students alike ask themselves if pregnant women would have fared better in Kenya and Uganda, had better health policies, and making it the norm to regularly supply vitamin D to pregnant patients. Vitamin D has been proven to help with babies' bones, teeth, kidney, heart, and nervous system development. Both studies were based in sub-Saharan Africa, where vitamin D deficient women are prevalent, and neither of the studies applied pregnant women with vitamin D. Either way, there were far too few articles discussing the topic, and not enough controlled trials to come to a clean-cut conclusion. So, yeah, I mean, I just want to thank my mentor, Claire, for all her patience and help with my paper. This is not easy to write by any means, and the end result was well worth it. It wasn't easy to write because this topic isn't really spoken about, and a lot of the data we were looking from was really scattered, and even the researchers themselves, because of like health guidelines and policies, and a lot of like, and the government really infiltrating on their like research, they didn't really allow much of the results to come out and show how vitamin D supplementation would have helped their community and country. And I think a lot of that has to do with money and greed from foreign healthcare. I mean, I think especially in sub-Saharan Africa, I think foreign help, foreign aid from maybe the USA, Canada, and other places, and like I guess what would be a good example of like the Red Cross, like they help all these children, with all these needs, and they just poster board them on like TV, but barely of any of the money really goes to those children in the first place. So I think if the government really actually helped and really revised their healthcare system on their own without need of foreign help, then I think a lot of their citizens wouldn't need to suffer from malaria as badly as they do. Vaccinations, supplementation. I mean, there's just a lot of things that could easily be avoided from like children looking. There's no reason for these children to have these kind of deformities, and that's kind of how I wanted to end it.